Well, we'll get tonight's meeting started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 4th, 2016 City Council meeting. I'd like to wish everyone here and at home a Happy New Year and hope you had a good Christmas season. Tonight we should have a real good meeting. We're into a new year. The Vikings won last night, so I finally got to bring my tie out that's been in the closet for probably a couple decades. And thirdly, the mayor will not be here tonight. He's gone on personal business, so he won't be able to bog us down. So we'll get right along here and we'll get business done. So we'd like to call the meeting to order. And tonight we welcome Father Michael Wensing from Holy Name Catholic Church that will lead us in prayer.
Okay, good. Well, Lord, as we turn the page on the new calendar year of 2016, give us in the community of Watertown, South Dakota, a new time of life, growth, and peace. Bless our new time. Bless our calendars, our holy days and holidays, our feasts and fasts, our birthdays, anniversaries, and all special days of remembering in the new year. Bless our instruments of time as well, from our iPhones to big grandfather clocks whose chimes make the passage of time more pleasant, and the ever-faithful, even if old-fashioned, wristwatches. Bless the chimes and bells of church tops that tell us to pause for prayer each noon and call us to worship each Sunday. And finally, we bless Thee, Lord, for whom time is not, but yet made each time important, as we proclaim with the psalmist in 106, give thanks to the Lord, for the Lord is good, for his kindness endures forever. Amen.
Okay, Shelley, if we could do roll call, please.
We can. Albertson?
Here.
Bueller?
Here.
Danforth?
Here.
Manty? Here. Riefenberger?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Solom?
Here.
Thorson?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start off with item number 1, which is the approval of the consent agenda. I'd like a motion for discussion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Bruce, second by Beth. Any questions or concerns in regards to the consent agenda? Any item on there? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The second item is the approval of the agenda. Again, I have a motion
So moved.
for a discussion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so we have Randy on a first and Bill on a second motion, and I have no changes to the agenda. Are there any items that you wish to add or delete from here? Okay, hearing none, I'd like a motion or all in favor for approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The third item is the application for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage license to Prairie Winds Golf LLC, doing business as Prairie Winds on Kemp at 11 East Kemp. The first item will be the public hearing, so we'll open that public hearing. This is the time and the place for anyone speaking in favor or against this item. Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against this? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Like to have a motion for discussion?
So moved.
Have a motion by, okay, Mr. Vilhauer, and who was the second? Bruce. Okay, is there any discussion on this?
My question is, why is it going to 11 East Kemp?
My understanding is that the current license at that location is going to be sold, and, which I believe, is that a full beverage license, or is
Yeah.
that? It's bulk. But that license is gonna be sold, so this will be a reissuance, a brand-new license to go back into that location, and a business will be ran there. I think that, I'm not sure if that business is changing hands or what. Lease the
Mike told me
business?
that Prairie Winds leased it from him for right now,
Okay.
so I think they.
Then it makes sense, so.
Any other questions on that?
Those probably going inactive at 11 East Kent probably at that point, or is it active?
No, actually, this one won't get active until the other one gets transferred out. You can only have one at one location.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the application, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. The fourth item is a resolution number 1601, adopting a moratorium on receiving applications for off-premise signs within and for the city of Watertown. So what I would like to do on that is to have a motion for discussion. So moved. Second. Motion by John, second by Beth. This came to the agenda, the mayor added this to the agenda over questions and concerns regarding additional billboards in the community, and there seemed to be more questions in regards to what the previous intentions were by the group of people that worked a number of years ago for 18-plus months on a revision of the sign ordinance, as well as some changes since then, and also as it relates to what was intended and required within the Gateway District. And so the mayor felt that it is best for us to put a moratorium on them and then convene a group of people to reassess history on this in regards to the intentions of the sign ordinance, the current language of the sign ordinance, and where we were at in regards to the creation of the overlay district. Now, the moratorium can last up to a year, and I believe that's what it does state on the document. But it would be the mayor's intention, and should be our intention, to get this thing addressed in as short a period as what we can. And so we would certainly ask and want the mayor to put a high priority on it so we get this thing done and resolved, and then we know where we're at, and everybody moves forward. And we certainly know that this impacts individuals that are in this business, and so we want to get we want to get this thing done as soon as we can. I personally, I don't know how long this will take, and with the mayor not being here tonight, but like he said, he will be committing and is committed to getting a group of people together to get this thing evaluated in as short a period as possible. Are there any comments and questions regarding this?
I have a couple of comments. I think that really the mayor approached me and explained that the main reason, his concern was billboards. That's the term that he used. And my understanding when they talk about billboards, which there really is not defined in our sign ordinance as billboards, they're talking about signs that are 288 square feet and up. Okay. What we're doing with this, if we decide to do this, is we're basically shutting off any opportunity for off-premise signs in the whole community that might be smaller than that. I believe that the concern was for the larger, what I always thought a billboard was a great big sign with the wood frame on the back, that kind of thing. And I think we really need to be careful with this. Now, I got to say, I'm in the sign industry, but I'm saying this because I understand a little bit more about them than I did prior to now, and the industry itself. But also, I think the mayor had mentioned that he was concerned about the Gateway overlay district. That was the main concern. the Gateway Overlay District is currently completely saturated. If you're just looking at a billboard type sign or a sign of over 288 square feet, there really is no opportunity there at this point in time. First Avenue, we've already said, First Avenue cannot have billboards, if you want to call them billboards, or signs of that size. So if we're going to do this, I would suggest that we localize this to the Gateway Overlay District, and if we can't do that, then I would say that we not put this, I wouldn't set this up as all off-premise advertising, all off-premise signs. I would say anything that is larger than 244 square feet. That's my opinion, because we do have people in this community that rely on, they have jobs, and there are companies in the community, obviously, that manufacture signs. And that would basically shut off a lot of opportunities for them for smaller signs underneath that 244 square foot size. So I think we really need to consider that before we just go ahead and make an all-out moratorium across the town, and we really don't know how long it's going to take. It took 18 months last time when we did that sign ordinance, and I was a part of that group. So we're saying it's going to be a year. If we're going to do something like that, if we had to have that, I would say then let's put a cap on it that says we're going to have it done in 30 or 60 or 90 days. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions or comments on that?
You know, you talked about 244 square feet. I think any size sign off-premise, you can find plenty of them probably off-premise, or a billboard type sign that would work that's below 244 square feet. I think the fear is, and this discussion has came up amongst some of us in the past, of having having a billboard or an off-premise sign pop up where we don't want one. Right now, we've had a couple in an area within the city limits that there's one across from a park down here on 3rd Avenue, and to get a handle on where they go, because once they're up, they're up. We're not going to get rid of them. So we just got to make sure where they go. I spent 9 years in the sign business, so I know, you know, a little bit about billboards myself. And actually, the company I work for, we have several billboards in Watertown, so I'm not against them. I just want to make sure that we have them in the areas that are appropriate, rather than having them pop up next to a residential or in certain areas that, you know, whether it be by the zoo, whether it be by a park, whether it be by whatever it would be, just to keep a handle on where they're at.
Why was it decided a year? Where'd that time frame come from?
Because it's my understanding that I think, Shelley, isn't a state statute that requires that the maximum time frame be a year on moratoriums? I believe it has to be a defined period.
I
And
think, Mike,
so-
a year is the maximum that you can do.
I
but
believe
I think you can model that to other timeframes.
Yes, you can. It's the maximum, Bruce, that you can. And so I think what they do on that is, in this particular case, the mayor put that on there, and then with every intention of getting this thing done in the most expedient manner. Bruce, you'd mentioned that to put a 30 or a 60-day time frame on that. That's probably, it really is an issue with the mayor, as the mayor is the one that would be the one to convene a committee, and if it involves staff, he is the one that directs staff. So this body here tonight, I don't believe, can really make that commitment for his staff. I think, you know, not knowing everything that he or they have on their plates, I think we just need to trust that we can get this thing done in a relatively short period of time without specifically defining that, and that we need to, and see. And like John said, we want to make sure that we get these things, that we know exactly where they can go today, and that we get them in the right place. Because once they're there, they're there. We're going to live with them forever. I see Tim Lallam has joined us here, and Tim gets very involved from a staff level with the sign code ordinance. Tim, I do have a question for you. So we do not have a specific definition of a billboard.
off-premises advertising is just defined as off-premises advertising. Just to maybe clarify what this thing is it's I can't receive any applications and approve an application. So your temporary off-premises advertising, which you'll see used sometimes, I don't get an application for that. So that stuff could still go up, you know, election signs, things like that, you know, real estate signs, for instance, or whatever. Those kind of things are temporary signs that we do have code and we have language that states what they can be and where they can be, how long they can be, things like that. So just to clarify that a little bit.
So
this
the
is-
portable signs that we had talked about months
it's
ago
completely separate
on
thing.
wheels, on carts,
Right.
those are not
That's-
affected by this.
Yep, that is actually a whole separate piece of the ordinance. This is just your permanent off-premise advertising, which is commonly referred to as billboards, is what this affects. So, that, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit so everybody knows. And the 1 year is, you were correct, that is how it works. 1 year is the maximum you can have. And the way the process will work is we'll have to put a group of people together, we'll come up with language, it has to go through the plan commission, then come to you guys, so it is a process that will take some time. I mean, we could maybe get some language put together fairly quickly, but by the time we meet our deadlines for plan commission and city council first seconds, those kind of things, I mean, you're talking probably 6 weeks is the minimum amount of time if we had something, an idea what we wanted to say right now. So just, that's the other part I wanted to clarify, so.
You know, one thing I will say, though, is it would be pretty focused, and if we are interested in the old information, we've got that. I mean, it's something we could dig up to review. We could resurrect that pretty fast, I think. You know, if we're gonna, if the spirit and the intent was billboards, then I'm thinking maybe that's what we had to talk about, is billboards. Anything with the large, like we're talking about billboard-style signs.
But Bruce, what you're referring to is your definition of a billboard. And
Well, I
we don't
think-
have a definition
Well,
of a
I think Mr.
billboard.
Long just said that what we were considering as a billboard were signs that were of the 244 square feet or
Up to
larger.
288 square feet.
Or 200.
It-
288, I'm
They are
sorry.
defined in that, it's not defined as a billboard,
Up to
up
288?
to 200,
Up
288.
to
Yep,
200.
That's the maximum
not-
size.
Well, the
And does
keyword-
it list a minimum size?
672 by,
Does it
conditional
list a
use.
minimum size?
nope, it does
Okay,
not.
so
It's up
without
to.
a minimum size, Bruce, we
But
can't.
it refers to a permanent structure. It does, that, it's a permanent.
That's the key word to that is permanent off-premise, so
Right.
that's the key word to that.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't really have to define size,
Yep,
so.
and to clarify another thing too, is the existing billboards, this really doesn't affect them unless some sort of catastrophic event comes through, like we had a couple of years ago where wind came through and knocked a couple down. And then we had another one that had to be re-erected because it was a right-of-way issue. But as far as them wanting to change a face, sell advertising, it doesn't affect that at all because face changes do not require them to come and see me or Ken. It's just any new or reconstructed billboards is the only thing this really affects. So, you know, for instance, if somebody buys parcel property, takes it down because it's in the way and they want to put it up in another spot, they could not do that during this moratorium until we decide what we want that to be. Or snowstorm piles up and knocks it over, something to that effect. Then, you know, maybe that's something we look at on a case-by-case basis. If something like that happens, maybe we can look at it at that point. I don't know, that's up to you guys.
On a reconstruction basis, any issues come up. You know,
Just-
the plan commission or this board certainly could look at that on a case-by-case basis and.
Couldn't the moratorium be based on new permanent off-premise?
That is essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we've dealt with them case by case, so that still isn't a major issue.
Yeah, it would probably require, and, you know, this legal counsel would be better, but it would probably require temporary lifting of the moratorium, you know, because even the plan commission can't override a moratorium without you guys lifting it. So I believe, I guess I shouldn't speak, and I believe that's how it works. But, I mean, it can be done if it comes to that. Hopefully, we'll have something resolved before we ever get to that point. I mean, I think the mayor has from him and I's conversation, he has every intention of getting this process done as quickly as possible, but that still doesn't mean you couldn't potentially have something come up in the meantime.
Tim, does this somewhat come out of that year ago meeting that we had dealing with other signage, and we had this discussion about issues on different areas and some of them currently being pretty close. We don't want to have those things come up in the future to right-of-ways and whatnot. So that was discussed
A year ago.
practically a year ago. I don't remember what the
it
time
was.
frame was. Not everybody, it was before the last election, so some of the people
Yep.
on the council weren't there, but I know that 4 or 5 of us were. And just kind of follow up on that is kind of where it's coming from.
It is actually, this moratorium was drafted exactly a year ago. I had to change some dates to get it in, but it is exactly the same discussion.
Are there any other questions, comments in regards to this?
I see we actually got some people from the sign company here. Did you guys have anything you wanted to touch on while you're here? And I like to hear all sides of it, so.
Please come up and state your name, please, and who you represent, please.
Hi there, Chris Wilson with Stein Sign Display.
Stuart Stein.
Hi, evening. I guess one of the there's a couple concerns that we have as a company. That's a lot of our, this is a big chunk of our operation here is off-premise signs. So a couple of things that jump out and kind of freak me out a little bit is one is the time frame. If we're talking about a 2-month, maybe 3 months of evaluating this and coming up with a better plan, I think that we could probably all agree that we could live with that. But as somebody stated, I think it was Bruce, that the last time we really worked on the sign ordinance was 18 months. So that scares me a little bit for a couple of reasons. One being that at any given time, for our company in particular, we've got these off-premise signs in an area that's going to have a lot of, hopefully, is going to have a lot of building going on soon. Right out there on East Highway 212, in and near that bypass. So what happens is if we are some of that land gets sold and we are forced to try and find a new location for a billboard that houses multiple advertisers, we're just out of luck. So that not only are we out of luck, but the advertisers that utilize our billboard are out of luck. And I mean, we've got advertisers with our company that they won't leave. They find such value in our product that they hang on to them for as long as they can. So it's going to be a hit. I mean, that would be a hit to not only our business but our advertisers. One of the other concerns that I have is we've got the reconstruction of Highway 212, which could force some billboards to be moved. Now, that might be moving 8 feet back off of the highway. In some cases, some might have to go away because there's nowhere for them to go. But in a situation like that, if we haven't resolved this by then, I need a permit to move a billboard 8 feet. Is that correct, Tim? Yeah. Okay, so for example, we have a billboard on 212 that's going to be in that zone that's going to be reconstructed. If that right-of-way bumps into our board, we can move that so it's out of the right-of-way, but with this moratorium, we wouldn't be able to.
The road construction isn't scheduled to start for at least three years, I think.
It's back to 19 now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully we won't be dealing with this issue for that long, but that was just one thing. I've heard several dates on that construction, so.
Well, Chris, on that, I just want to make a comment on there. I cannot envision this moratorium even coming any close to lasting a year. To me, I think within a 90 to 120 day period, it should be able to be evaluated and everything be done. That's just my opinion, okay? Bruce, and you mentioned that it took 18 months the last time to go through. That was a complete sign ordinance evaluation.
I did say that, Mike, that it would be more of a focus. It probably would.
And with this one, I'll call it one item to take a look at, I just can't see it taking months and months and months. But again, I wish I could, but I can't make that commitment for the mayor here because I don't direct and schedule staff. So it was drafted and represented here by the mayor as the 1 year. But I will tell you that he and I have had several conversations about it, and there's no intention of this thing even lasting anything close to a year.
Okay.
So, you know, and then, so maybe what we can do is for our purposes here tonight, is we need to act on the request, the resolution that's in front of us, you know, with the maximum of a year, but I don't think there's anybody up here that has any desire for this thing to go on a year. This is something that has been kicked around. I've been on the council for a little over 4 years, 4.5 years, and I was a part of the group that spent the 18 months, kind of the tail end of that, looking through the sign ordinance way back when. And the whole issue of off-premise signage and billboards, it's just always been a lingering issue for us. And like Tim said, you know, a year ago we had something that was up here. Well, we've had these discussions. It seems like they come up periodically. And I think what we need to do is we need to just take a look at this thing on I'll call it a once and for all basis, and clearly understand where could they go today in the city of Watertown under the current ordinance requirements. So we understand what today's opportunities look like. Where are they at within the city of Watertown, and what do we want them to be? What was the intentions of some of our predecessors per se, and as it relates to the Gateway District, as it relates to the sign ordinance, and let's just take a pause, see what it is that we want, see if we think there's some changes that need to occur, so that hopefully, and I'm going to say once and for all, but that obviously can change down the road with different people and staff and different people as mayor or council, but hopefully have something that has been looked at and has, you know, merit on a going forward basis, you know, and then as our community grows, we got to look at it and potentially make changes, whether that's opening or tightening the sign ordinance. But I am not in favor of isolating the moratorium simply to the 212 area out by the Gateway District. I don't think that's fair to put a moratorium solely on that ownership group. I think that would be inappropriate for us to do that. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to take a period of time, whether that be 2, 3 months, 4 months, and to go through this thing and get it done. And again, I can't guarantee that's going to be the time frame, but I don't think that's unreasonable for us to do that.
Can I just ask, this has come up multiple times over the years, you kind of just mentioned that. What are the key points that keep coming up about off-premise advertising, if you can share? I mean,
Location.
Okay.
And the unknown of where they're gonna pop up. You know, that's the biggest thing is, you know, we had couple of them pop up in the center of town there, and until we figure out exactly where we can put them and where we don't want them, and where they're appropriate, that's probably the biggest unknown. Because all of a sudden you drive down the street and you go, hey, wow, who put that big billboard up right there? It's kind of unsightly.
John, does the city have the right to decline the permit if it is in the middle of the city?
I don't think if it meets, that's a question for.
We have the right as staff to refer anything to Plan Commission, any application, building permit, whatever, anything that's under Title 21. But legally, if we denied it and it met all of our standards, I think we could definitely open ourselves up to litigation because you didn't really we don't have sound reasoning. We just don't think it fits there. Well, your ordinance says it does. So, you know, that I think we could definitely open ourselves up. I just to clarify, what these are is all the billboards within the city proper of Watertown. Those circles represent the 500-foot radius they have to be. So essentially, it's 500 foot from the center to the outside of the line, so wherever there's a gap between circles is where there's availability for signage. And off-premise advertising. Off-premise advertising is allowed in any C1, C3, and any of the I industrial zone locations within the city of Watertown. It doesn't state anything whether it's on 212, 81, Highway 20, middle of town, whatever. That's the only way, that's the way our ordinance reads presently. So that's why you see some of these scattered about,
Tim,
not on the corridor.
all of these are considered, would you consider billboards?
Those are all what anybody, I would think, would call a billboard, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's a lot of other off-premise signage, certainly outside of that.
I don't know. I don't know that we have I don't know what you would define a lot as. This is the major piece of our off-premise, I would say, and within our ordinance, this is the major piece.
I think one of the problems we have is we don't define billboard. You know, let's be honest. If you're talking about putting up a sign and it's a 6x6 sign and it's off-premise signage on a post, I'm probably less concerned with it than I am a sign that's up to 288 square feet with a 4-foot diameter pole and you know, some massive structure up there. I'm much more concerned with that and where that might go. Where are the right places for those things? That's me. Again, I'm not against the signs. I know that, and they add a value to the people within the community, and they certainly are a part of people's employment and their jobs and such. But we need to do it right, and I think that our first step must be to define billboard, and then go from there, because that's really what we're talking about here. We're really not talking about all the other assets. There's many different kinds of off-premise signage. We're not talking about those. We really are talking about, in our own minds, however we vision that size-wise, as a billboard. And so I think very first and foremost, we need to define that and then work to that, and that be very specific as to what we're referring to. Tim, were you looking up something that was?
Find the definition for you.
Stuart, did you have another comment?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't disagree with you. It sounds as though there's some clarity that needs to be made in the sign code, and I'm all for that and would be happy to be involved with any discussions as a representative from our company, at least for contributions. I guess one final comment that I would like to make, at least from our company's perspective, is that, you know, there's really no other business that I can think of that if you were to put a moratorium on, say, you know, alcohol sales or, you know, seals and gutters and you know, fascia. I mean, this is impacting our business. You're not allowing our business to put any more billboards up as a revenue source. And if you think of any other business that's you know, as a revenue source, that's ultimately impacting, you know, the company and the employees that work for it. And I feel as though you can sort out the sign code, you can sort out the locations on where you're going to allow billboards, you can do all of that without a moratorium and still accomplish the same thing.
Stuart, let me ask you a question. How many billboards have you put up in Watertown in 2015?
0 to my knowledge.
Okay.
I've been here since April of 13, and I've issued one billboard off-premise advertising permit since I've been here. They erected a couple that were permitted just before I started. That there's a couple places in town, but I bet in the last 4 or 5 years we maybe had 4 or 5 of them, and there was one company put up 3, and then another one put up 1, and there's 1 since I've been here.
So we're not even averaging 1 a year here right now, correct?
Right.
So honestly, I find it hard to grasp that a moratorium of a period of time that I'd like to be able to commit to, you know, a 3-month or a 4-month period, especially based on the history of the erection of these things. I can't believe that's going to be a significant bother to anybody. Am I wrong in that?
I can speak to that. The one thing that would kind of change all of this, as far as frequency of how many have gone up in the last year or 2 years even, is we know with the new building, the new businesses coming in on East 212, we've got several billboards that we know we're going to either need to replace, and that's soon, that's coming. So we know that we either need to replace them, or we have to deal with the loss of that revenue, the loss of that potential for our advertisers. So that's what makes it a little bit different than the last year. I was told within this last 2 weeks that it looks like a set of those billboards that we have out on East 212 there by the bypass is going to be going away really quick. It leaves me with 4 advertisers that are going to be without their advertisement and us without that billboard, that revenue.
And here's where, and I haven't had time to work on this, and it's part of where I need to get my mind on this thing, but as I go back to the development of that area and going way back to the Gateway District, all the work that was put into that, it was my understanding that as soon as those lots started to sell out there and were developed, if a lot was sold and there was a billboard on it, that billboard could no longer exist and be placed on that. And that was my understanding of that whole area, not just First Avenue, not just the Willow Creek Drive, but the whole perimeter of the Gateway District, which includes Highway 212 on the north side.
So if the lot was sold
And it had a billboard on it.
owner wanted the billboard to be removed,
No, when the lot sold, billboards would go away. There's no, at that point, there was no option of keeping it. That was my understanding.
forgive me, that's something I've never heard. I've never seen any documentation on that. I know
Tim,
that
Okay,
there-
that's why I
Are you
think we
aware
need
of
to,
anything like that?
I haven't been able to find anything within writing. I think that was what was portrayed and what was maybe, I don't want to say sold, but I think is what was given to you and reasoning given to you at the time. Looking back in the master development agreement in that area, there's no language within there stating that they have to go away. The only one that has to go away that is in writing is the one that's directly adjacent to the First Avenue, Willow Creek Drive, Highway 81 intersection to the east, because that sign was put there by conditional use because it's too close to another one. It was in that right away. It got moved over, had a 5-year sunset. That 5-year sunset was extended to the end of next calendar year of 17. That billboard has to go away by that date unless it gets extended again. Or if development happens on that lot, then that one will go away. That's the only one I found that's stated in writing that it has to go away.
well, like I said, I am very comfortable in what I was told and what I understand in regards to the gateway. Now, whether it's not in writing or whatever, or if it ended up not being documented, I do know that specifically with one of the landowners, I talked to them, and he knew clearly that when that land sold, the billboard was going away, and that was not an issue. He says, I understand that.
And I talked to one of the owners of Coho last week, and he stated the exact same thing to me at that time.
That's why I'm thinking we need to pause and go figure out what truly was intended and discussed and I'll say agreed to, whatever. Because here we have a landowner that was a part of this gateway development that understands it, and that's not the same one that I had a discussion with. So now we got two landowners that have that same understanding. So that's just where I'm at, and my recommendation would be that we pass the resolution, and I think we need to push like heck with the mayor to get this thing done, and in as short a period of time as he can commit to, and we'll try to make that happen.
Question about construction. You guys have to put footings in on these billboards. Is it, can you build them year-round, or is it once the frost is in, you can't?
We can build them year-round, and one of the things that the city said years ago was any new build billboard structures have to be a single pole structure, meaning just one round pole. They're about 1.5 to 2 foot diameter. The issue with that is there's no way to once you put that in the ground, you don't get to reuse that. So it's very cost prohibitive to just go up and put billboards up willy-nilly. Once that's put in the ground, you've got 12 to 15 feet of your structure buried in the ground. There's just really no reusing that. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but yeah, I mean it's a permanent foundation. It's a permanent structure.
Put them in year-round.
Yeah, we can put them in tomorrow. I'd like to. It's a little harder in the wintertime.
Anybody else that would like to comment on this, ask questions? Anybody else on the council that has a question or comment, please?
I guess I just have a comment. I'm coming in new to this discussion, and it's obvious there's an awful lot of confusion and concern about this, and I think it's only reasonable that we step back from this and have a short-term moratorium. Yes, get it done as quickly as possible, but I think we need to take a pause and get something worked out here.
Well, I think the only question before us is, do we want to stick with 1 year or do we want to shorten it? I really think that's the one question that's before us.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here.
Isn't this proposed to be up to a year now? I would think as a council, if this was 6 months out and we're not getting anywhere with it, and people come back and say, you guys are dragging your feet, that we can
At any
vote
time-
on that and say that's enough. We just, if we can't get our mind made up that we can eliminate it if that's what it takes. Then
At any time, we could lift a moratorium with a vote, of course.
It's stated right within the language that we can lift at any time.
Mike, do you know who has the mayor appointed to be working on this?
I don't think the mayor has appointed yet because the resolution has been passed. What he has said is that, as I stated earlier, is that he needs to convene a body of people to get this thing looked at and to look at the historical aspects and then also look at, once we understand that, because that really, really is pertinent to the Gateway District, and then figure out, are there other areas that are we set up the way we want it to be in regards to these signs? Because like Chris said, once they're there, they're there, you're not going to move them.
Shelley, if we pass this tonight, when does it go into effect?
According to the language, it'll pass immediately.
Miss that.
Let me ask this to the council. Would it make sense to, if there is a strong desire to have this moratorium in place, would it make sense for us to wait until the mayor has a body in place and gets this started before we put the moratorium in? That way we're not waiting 2 months before we finally get a group together.
No, he can put a group together. We put the moratorium in, that'll give him authorization to put a body together and then go about the business. The minute if we don't put a moratorium in, they're gonna have about 15 applications for billboards on their desk tomorrow to put them up. I know how this business, I know how this business works, Bruce. I was in it once.
Well, how many have we built, John, in the last how many years?
Well, and that's exactly my point, though, Bruce, is how many have we built in the last number of years, and I just don't see a 3 or 4 month period really having that great of effect. Because if it doesn't change, then the area out on East 212 isn't adversely affected in regards to its possibility for signage there.
Chris, the signs that you guys got on East 212 that you say you're going to have to move, possibly by this spring, do you have a new location for those lined up yet, or?
Working on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I would just make one last comment that, if the goal is to have this done as quickly as possible, and of course you can't assure us that it's going to be done in 2-3 months because, like Bruce said, the mayor hasn't even put together the body yet. Perhaps the wording could be changed from 1 year down to 6 months, just to have some desire to get it done as quickly as possible, but not have that option of all the way up to 12 months within the body's allowable time frame to get this done.
Shelley, can I ask you a question? And I wish Stan was here, but he's not with us tonight. Is it typical on a moratorium to go just to the 1 year max, or is that normal to just to arbitrarily have that time frame on there, or is it kind of helter-skelter in regards to what
I guess I don't know if I can speak to normal. What's normal? I don't know.
Typical.
You're asking me normal. I don't know.
I would not call you normal. By the way.
Exactly, and you're asking me what normal is. So I probably can't do that. I guess to give the most flexibility to not have to continue to come back and address this, the up to 1 year or until you get it settled is probably the all-encompassing way to just address it once, get it done, and come back and lift it. If there's concerns that feet are going to get dragged and it's not going to, then you probably have to address that length of time.
That's what I'm thinking is that in the language, it has the opportunity for us to lift it at any time. And so if you come to us, Stuart, and say, I got like 12 permits here stacking up on my desk and you guys haven't done anything yet, I think then it behooves us as a council to take a look at it and say, do we need to change this? So I think looking at all of this, I think it is good, and you probably would agree, that we need to make sure when we put them in, we're putting them in where we want them and where they'll look best for the city. And then also keep in mind that we have businesses that depend on the signs. And I agree with Shelley that if you have that amount of time, we're not coming back every 30 days to look at it, but I think we all agree that this needs to be taken care of as quickly as possible. So I think we can change depending on the circumstances is the way I read it. If something comes up that causes us to take a look at this and say, whoa, 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 we're not going in the right direction, we're not getting anywhere, we're stalled. But I really do think that it is time to take a breath and say, where do we want these to go? Because like you said, when you put them in, they're not moving, and we've got such a huge amount of potential and actual development going on there. And so I think I think that's my understanding as I listen to the conversation is that, I understand completely where you're coming from, but I also feel as a council, we want to make sure that the city, and that's, one of the main places that people come in to see us, looks the way we want it to look. And so this gives us the most amount of flexibility, but we can readdress it if things change. Does that make sense?
And Stuart, here's what I'll commit to you, and I'll make a suggestion that as for Don and I as the president and vice president of the council, and I don't believe there's anybody on this council that wants this thing to drag out. This kind of has been a pain in the butt for a lot of years, so let's just get it done. The mayor not being here tonight, we will communicate to the mayor this council's desire to get this thing done in a 30 to 90 day period, or a 60 to 90 to 120 day period. We'll try to work with him and get a commitment that is going to be much, much shorter than a year. But I honestly think if we said 6 months tonight, well, then it could be 6 months. I think the biggest opportunity for us to get this into a shortest period of time is for us to sit down with the mayor and say, let's figure out a schedule and let's get it done, and let's make it as short as possible. And I will commit to you, Don, if you would join me, that we'll sit down with the mayor when he is back, and we will work with him to get a schedule set as best we can. So we'll pass the 1 year. That area of development for our community is too important for us for this thing to drag on. This is a part of that development, good, bad, or other. It is. It's depending on what side of the fence you're on. So it is important for us to get this thing. We've been working in this for the development of that whole area of land for so many years, and now we've got a lot of really good opportunities that are coming. We just don't want to blow it. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and we want to do it as quickly as we can so that everybody knows where we stand. So we will meet with the mayor when he is back. We will go over the concerns that you guys have, which is primarily, initially anyway, is the time frames from it, and we will see what we can do to get the most expedient type of work done on this. And again, I wish I could commit to you in a specific time frame, but I really don't believe it's unreasonable for it to be 90 to 120 days. And like Chris said, I think he said even if it was 6 months. So I think 6 months, it shouldn't take us that long. We've been through this.
I think one of our concerns when we read the language was that after a year, it could be renewed again for another year, and that was
be at 6 months.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Right, 6 months can get renewed if it's justified, or a year can be renewed again and passed again. So it doesn't matter what that time frame is. At any point, if it's justifiable in a renewal, it can get extended. So,
Mike, if we come to you with a reasonable location that is acceptable to the city for a potential billboard, wherever that might be, is that something that can be reviewed then on a case-by-case basis with it being lifted and then reapplied after that billboard has been accepted?
I don't see any reason why we couldn't sit down and take a look at things. What it would require would be a lifting of the I believe you're right. I think assuming that we'd have to do a lifting of the moratorium for that purpose, and then reenact the moratorium. You know, I think, you know, if you guys have something specific, you know, the best way to do it, let's bring it forward. Let's sit down and take a look at it, even if the moratorium is in place. We're not trying to impede business here. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make sure that this really is a part of the image of Watertown and what we want our community to look like. And there's been a lot of time and a lot of money, a lot of efforts put into trying to beautify our community and making it, you know, look better to those that not only live here but that come here. So, and certainly that east part of town, being a growth area commercially, this is very important to us. So we want to do it right.
I would strongly encourage you, if you do have any opportunities over in that part of town, to come to us as soon as you can, because that is, you know, that is an important part of your business. Your business is important to the city of Watertown. But that'll also encourage us to get this thing taken care of, get it done once and for all. You guys can move on with your business. City can move on with theirs, and we're doing the right thing for the city, not only residents, but also the businesses like yours. So,
what would that look like as far as bringing that before you? You know, if we've got a location, what's the process?
You know what I would do? Where's Tim at? Call Tim. Tim at that point would maybe bring Ken and the mayor and whomever in, and we'll just sit down and start taking a look at things. Yeah, and we'll just look at things with no assurances of anything at that point, guys. But you know, if it is in an area where we really don't have concerns, and we know that, then I don't know why we wouldn't look to proceed in that manner. So, you know, I would hope we would work with you.
One thing clear though too before we move on, and that is the Gateway Overlay District. There really are no opportunities there currently at all for any of this. There are none. There are none on First because we don't allow them on First, and as you can see, it's already saturated on 212. But I just want everybody to be clear that Gateway District starts at 31st and goes all the way west to 19th.
Unless the cemetery is going to sell us some plots.
Well, Father was here, and he has some say in that, but, you know, maybe put like a big headstone up there on a flashing bill. That's not a bad idea. Headstone, just keep changing them.
You need a job?
You know, maybe I'll be the first one on there. Okay, I think we've had good discussion. At this point, what I would, we got motion and second, correct? All right, at this point, I'll look for.
Mike, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay. So with that said, I will look for council action. All in favor of the resolution to establish the moratorium for 1 year, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. And guys, we will, as soon as the mayor's back, we will get with him and we will try to get something established, and we'll report that back, probably through the council, through something in regards to what his goals are in regards to that evaluation. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us on to item number 5, and that is a resolution number 1605 approving the settlement of the collective bargaining negotiations between the City of Watertown and the Watertown Police Officers Association. Let's see. With that, Shelley, would you like to?
I sure can. I'll talk about number 5 and 6 because they're kind of talking about the same thing, but we'll just vote on them separately. Basically, the city has 3 bargaining units that represent the police, the fire, and then basically everyone else who is not police and fire. And as you can see, 2 of those 3 bargaining units that are represented by the police and fire have reviewed the 3-year contract as negotiated and as recommended by the Finance Committee. They have voted on their members, and they have agreed to the terms. And so that's what we're doing here tonight is authorizing the mayor to sign on behalf of the city those 3-year terms. The third bargaining unit is AFSCME. They cover all the other eligible union employees that aren't police and fire. They have received their 3-year contract. I did receive a phone call on email today, both, and their representative has received it. They will have a vote sometime this week, and they'll let us know. There has been nothing presented to me as far as issues that they might have. If for some reason they would come back and they would have some sort of concern about whatever language it was, and it did affect the other 2 bargaining units, because we do have some uniform language in there, at that time it'd be up to the Finance Committee to make any recommendations for changes, if any, and kind of work that out. We could always do a memorandum of understanding if we do change any of those terms and they affect the other 2 bargaining units. But in the past, it's been pretty standard to kind of individually, once we get an agreement with the bargaining units, to come and have them, not all 3 inked at the same time. It's pretty standard. I don't foresee any issues. They do know that we do need to have an agreement by the second meeting in January, or we have to at least impose a 1-year contract so that we can get people paid at the end of January and have something in place. So again, I don't foresee any issues with AFSCME, but that's kind of where we are. So right now we have the 2 bargaining units that are good with the 3-year contract as presented to them, and so that's what you'll be voting on tonight.
Okay.
I make a
thank
motion
you.
to approve
Thank you, Shelley.
1605.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Don, second by Dan. Discussion on the council? We are doing number 5 at this point, which is strictly the Police Officers Association. Hearing no questions, all in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Resolution number 6. Agenda 6.
I'll move that one.
Second.
Good. I'd like to read that one, though, if I can, please, in regards to, it's resolution number 1606, approving the settlement of collective bargaining negotiating between the City of Watertown, Local Union 1724 of the International Association of Firefighters representing Watertown and the Watertown Fire Department. So with that, Shelley's already given the description. We have a motion to approve by Glenn and a second by Beth. Any questions in regards to that resolution?
Not a question, just a comment, or I guess I just want to thank those involved. I mean, there's an awful lot of time on the part of Shelley, Stanton, as our city attorney, our mayor, the union reps that have gone into this. And I guess I just want to thank everyone for their time and patience and in working through this. And glad we only do it at once every 3 years.
As
A
well
lot
as,
of hard work.
as
so,
well as the
yep.
Finance Committee, who spent a lot of time with us going over the bargaining. So thank everybody for their time and efforts.
And thanks to the employees that are involved. They do a wonderful job for our community. So, okay, we will move on to agenda item number 7, which is we haven't voted.
No.
All right, we'll vote on that one. We don't leave the fire department out. All right. So all in favor of the resolution approving the settlement agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Now we'll go on to number 7. Resolution number 1608, establishing fees for city licenses, permits, administration, and other miscellaneous items. If you recall, we discussed this, I believe, in a work session a few weeks ago, was it? Was that work session or council?
No, we actually approved a resolution last council agenda.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But
Shelley, why don't you grab this one? Yeah.
I apologize. When we were making those changes, we were working off an older resolution version. So I did make some highlights, and these were actually done and accepted and added to the previous resolution, but anytime you accept another one, you pretty much cancel that one out. So I apologize. There is nothing that changed. It's just these inadvertently got omitted from the last one that you just approved. So we did go back. We did double check. Now everything is included as it should be. So this one will replace the one that you did at the last meeting with the all-encompassing fees. So.
Shelley, if we approve this resolution, it's dated December 21st. Does that need to be July or January 4th then?
Yep, and we did catch at it, just didn't get into the council agenda. Thank you very much.
I do have a question. Under the sign, there's 2 fees in here for a sign permit, under 100 square feet and over 100 square feet. Under 100 square feet, we charge $25. Over 100 square feet, we charge $50. And it takes the same amount of paperwork to do both.
First of all, let me stop. Do we have a motion and a second for discussion? Let's stop and do that first. So Randy has the first and
Second.
John has the second. On that one, John, I will tell you that I think there's a number of discrepancies in here, and we mentioned that when we voted at the last meeting. I did talk to the mayor Saturday and asked if he would bring his staff and some of a couple of the council members together to go through and completely review that type of logic in all the fees that we have, and to see it, where there are some items, and they're little things, but like it's, a photocopy is 15 cents at the library and it's 25 cents here. It's just little things, and but there should be rhyme and reason as to what those fees are, and so he would like to and is committed to doing that and having that evaluation done prior to the start of the 2017 budget cycle, so it can be just included in there. So that is going to get looked at.
Fair enough.
And you're on there, by the way, I think.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, sorry. So that's in need of having that done, because there are some discrepancies in there. We have to clearly understand why we're charging what we're charging, and so we're going to bring all the department heads together at one point and try to get that done, looked at together. Did that answer? Okay.
I do have one question on this under liquor sales for Sunday. We got $200. We just recently approved for this doesn't define on sale, off sale. Okay. This just says liquor sales Sunday. We just approved the off sale for Sunday liquor, but we did not actually tack on any more license. We did on the on sale when we allowed them to do a Sunday liquor, and that has been brought up to me. Why do we have to pay the extra $200 and they don't? This just defines liquor sales Sunday.
Right, I think, and I'm not the liquor expert in our office, but I believe that the liquor sales for Sunday is on sale, not off sale. Off sale was already defined that they could sell on Sunday through the license that they already had. They didn't need a second license in order to sell on Sunday. That's why there's not an additional fee for them. All you did was change the hours.
Okay.
So.
But back when we did that for the on sale, we charged them an additional $200, or is that part of state statute? Because
it's an additional license that they have to have. They have their license, and then they have an additional license to sell on Sunday,
okay,
where our off sale is only one license to sell. And then you guys allow that and set the hours. So that's why there's only one fee.
That should probably someplace in their state define it, whether it's on sale or off sale.
It's a good point, Randy. I've had that question asked to me as well. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Knowing that we're going to go back through and work this for what will be the 2017 year. So hearing not, I will ask for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, and that's authorization for the mayor to sign amendment number 1 to the agreement with Houston Engineering for services associated with the landfill cells number 6, design and stormwater analysis. Shane, I'll let you handle that one.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. The original agreement was on October 14, 2014, and that was to initiate design documents for the future Cell 6 construction. The memo from the engineering consultant is fairly lengthy, but I'll paraphrase some of it. During construction of Cell 4, the crew intercepted saturated layer material, and they tried to rectify that by putting in tiles and gravity draining the saturated soil layer, and ultimately that didn't work, and they had a collapse, so they had to redo some work on Cell 4. On the construction of Cell 5, they designed to accommodate more drainage, but now that they're going to design Cell 6, that's low enough down the hill that they're running out of options to gravity drain those drain tiles. So their original engineering agreement did not include the design and analysis of the storm sewer issues that we were having out there. And so the amendment here for requesting $12,500 is an additional engineering services to design a lift station that will collect the drainage problem issues and pump it out safely into our water treatment facilities and then let it function. So it's a kind of an issue that morphed into an additional design piece for this Cell 6. And just for a point of reference, we are getting somewhat of a break because the engineer had to design an almost identical pump station for another landfill in the area, so they were able to save us about $5,000 by rehashing their other design and fitting it to our site. So we did get some break in the negotiations of this fee. So long story short, the additional engineering design work was required, and we're recommending approval.
Sounds to me like a couple photocopies and we could have got it for nothing.
Well, it's always more than that, but we did benefit from.
Okay. Well, thank you. So this is just an amendment to the original agreement that we have with them.
Correct.
So just let's expand that. Okay, with that said, I'd like a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth, was it? Okay, are there any questions from the council? Okay, hearing none, we will look for council action. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Thank you very much. We'll go on to agenda item number 9. It's a consideration change order number 1 to the contract with J&J Earthworks, Inc. for the airport hangar taxi lane expansion project, decreasing the amount $574.98. Todd is here to explain this one. Todd?
Yes, the project actually ran under for the taxi lane, so it's completed. This is the final closeout, and so we're just going to decrease the contract amount by the number up there, $16,574.98.
So that'll bring an end to that project altogether then, right?
That's correct. And it came in under $200,000, so the city's cost for that whole project was about $9,700.
So are those hangars done then? The hangars aren't done.
The 8 unit T hangars done, yes.
They are done?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're completely rented out, so.
Oh, they are? All of them?
Yes.
Well, very good. Well.
Another one in the works?
Yes.
Yep.
It was in the consent agenda to go out for bids. We have to do some more research on how many people are still on the waiting list. I've had a few drop off that I've contacted, so we're going to go through that list again to make sure.
Okay. Well, Todd, thank you very much for your description and help. What we'll do is I'd like to look for a motion and a second for our discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Bruce. Are there any other questions that we have?
Nice work on this.
Todd, does this work complement if we do another hangar, or does this work in conjunction with that, or?
This does not. This is more for private hangars, as far as the 75 by 75s for the jets that come in, CSS farms, milk carters,
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions then? Okay, hearing none, we'll look for council action. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes as well. Is there any old business for discussion?
Todd, before you leave, is there anything on the airline? Anything new on that, or where is that?
I spoke with the federal DOT this morning, and they are in the final stages. We're hoping it'll be early this week that we hear a result on the financial fitness of ADI. So they had one comment in the 2-week comment period that's federally regulated to have. So the government said, yes, you're financially fit. We have a 2-week comment period. Does anybody have anything to say about it? They had one comment, ended up that it was a false comment. It was actually a lawsuit with another airline that the prior owner had, as my understanding is. So it should have no effect on the DOT's decision.
Where is Pierre in the process by now?
Pierre's waiting for this financial fitness to go through. And then they have an option to go back out for rebid for their contract, the Essential Air Service contract. So I did talk to Mickey Bowman as well, though, and he said even if Pierre does go back out for bids and accepts ADI's proposal in the next bid process, they're still looking at April 1st for a start.
Have we gotten any indication that if the financial fitness comes back correctly and in a timely manner, do we have any indication of what we think Pierre might do?
There's a good indication that they will accept ADI.
Okay, I hope so. I know I'm getting a lot of questions about that.
I get about 3 or 4 phone calls a day from general public looking to book tickets already.
Yeah, what's that? No, I'm not. No, mine usually happen at Hy-Vee, by the way, so. Okay, Todd, thank you very much. Don?
Just, Shane, any update on the drainage issues at Cherry Creek? Is there been any progress there?
Yeah, I'm working with the engineering firm on that design, and we'll come forward here in the next month or so with probably asking for advertising.
Was that budgeted? There was an amount budgeted for this, for 2016 for
Correct.
Actual work, correct?
Yep, for the drain tile work, there's a budget. There may be some additional work that we'll design going forward as well to enhance that area.
So the drain tile hopefully would take care of at least the
water
nuisance scenario,
yep.
and the rest of it would clean it up and make it look aesthetic type thing.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else that anybody has on old business?
Shane, is Bridge old business?
Yeah.
Or is that old business?
Yep.
It's been brought to my attention about the South Broadway road there, that the bridge prior to HESCO is not workable for their business, and if the road were to be closed south with that bad bridge, then they couldn't any longer use that, so HESCO would be in serious trouble, and I know you're aware of that, so I didn't know what more information there might be regarding the new bridge before we get too far into this whole plan.
Right. Well, essentially, we're still gathering information on how much discussion has taken place between the GLE and their project proposal as how it impacts HESCO. I personally have received a phone call from the owner of HESCO to discuss the operation and or potential closure of Broadway, and at that time we hadn't received an official petition to close Broadway, so I told him at that time that we would have to have extensive discussions on the impacts of closing Broadway to his business. And he did acknowledge that the weight limits on the bridge that's located north of his driveway currently don't allow him to handle full legal limit loads. So that would be one thing that we would have to strongly consider on Broadway going forward, is the replacement of that bridge, and have to discuss that with the overall area. And further, again, the bridge from the south, that's essentially a box culvert. That's in poor condition as far as its appearance, but it can adequately handle legal load trucks, so that's not an issue. But we're going to have extensive discussions with GLE and HESCO and generally the public before we make any hard, fast decisions on the future of Broadway. So that's ongoing.
Yeah, I think there's probably more questions than there are answers right now. But can I ask you a question on that bridge, the one by Little River City? Is the load limit issue related to the bridge design or the condition of the bridge?
It's related to the condition.
So in its day, when it was new, it would have been adequate?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else on old business? Okay, anything on new business? I'd like to just talk about one thing on new business, and that is in regards to the article that was in the paper, and I think it was referencing the affordable housing out by Derby Downs, and I think the proper terminology that we hope to use is workforce housing, which is more affordable housing for those in workforce and that qualify for the mortgage type payments. But I think if we all look back, we paid for a housing study, and I believe that was presented to us maybe 3-4 months ago, something like that. And one of the things that was brought up in there, which we all knew was going to show up in there, was the lack of affordable housing in Watertown. And that has been a long topic of discussion of what do we do, and there's really only so many options that we do have. But the thing that we didn't want to have happen was we did not want to have that report come in, sit on a shelf, and then draw dust. We wanted to, and I think we all said when we approved the financing within the budget for that report, that if we're going to do this, then let's look at doing something with it. And this is, that process really just takes, it takes a lot of discussion. It takes ideas to get thrown out on the wall and see if they stick and to see what has merit and feasibility. And I think that's what the mayor has done in his thinking of the area mentioned out by Derby Downs, because it was city-owned land. That's not to say that that land doesn't have value to our community in other ways. It does. It's a very nice area out there. But all this is at this time is very, very initial discussions. There have been no decisions made on this. But the mayor and staff, Shane and the engineering group, and us as a council, we have to start having these discussions. I think it's unfortunate that the article did somewhat come across like it's kind of a done deal and it's going in, and that certainly is not the case. That is just a spot that was identified by the mayor a number of months ago. Matter of fact, I think he even mentioned it way back a few months ago within either a council or work session. So I want to let the public know, and the mayor wants to let the public know that that this is a process. It is going to take a lot of discussion amongst us. There is going to be a lot of public input into these types of things. There'll be public hearings. But we need to see what we can do within our community to create more affordable housing for our people. Again, we feel it's very important to start these discussions, and some things will be brought up, and they might have merit, and some won't, and they might just go away. So this is just part of a process, and I just wanted to let everybody know on behalf of the mayor, and I think probably on us as well, from our standpoint, that I think the article somewhat came across as this is well on its way, and this is really the first little baby step, and there's nothing other than discussion, some initial thinking that possibly could occur in this location, and that's all it is. So, are there any other comments questions on that?
I've had several people talk to me about that, and I think the major concern that I heard was maybe two things, but number one was that development was going to start this summer, as early as this summer. That's what was picked out of that. And so all of this talk now about discussion and other times to air your opinions and to get it, I think was it. And then two, the fact that they were going to use the land right by the, down by the arena there, and what's going to happen with are we going to have rodeos anymore? Or is that all gone? And if so, where's that going? And, so there were just a lot of questions that certainly weren't answered by the newspaper article, but I think you've cleared up some of it tonight in terms of there will be discussion, and it's not that it's in the infancy, not in the adult stage of being built here.
Yeah. I guess I would just like to add too that this has by far generated more comments and calls and emails to me than anything in the 6 months I've been on this group. And as I walked through, as I understand how the process would work, it's alleviated a lot of the concerns that people have had, because they were under the impression too that, boy, this is going to start this summer and we've got no say in the matter, and that was not sitting well with the people that contacted me.
I can weigh in on that
Shane, you wanna? Yeah.
process a little bit. Essentially, what I brought that to the Parks Board because they are currently managing and maintaining that property, and I felt that it was warranted them at least hearing it before it became a greater public knowledge, which I'm appreciative. The article actually wasn't too bad. I mean, for quoting, he did a good job of quoting a lot of the comments that were made. And where we're going with the process is, this is a concept and a location. The concept has a location that we're considering. I'm going to bring a more detailed information packet to the council at the next council meeting in the work session. So that'll be a broader discussion of the concept. And then, if the concept starts to take shape, we'll eventually end up in the planning commission process, where we get our preliminary plan and our all of those hoops in the public hearing, and all those things will come forward out of this process. Now, that doesn't mean that the concept isn't going to change locations. It could change and be anywhere within the city limits. The one reason this particular location was chosen for the concept, though, is that the land is available to us and it's free. Anywhere else, we may have additional expenses by buying available land someplace to do a project like this, which of course then impacts the bottom line of how much of a project can you do. So we do have some budget in 2016 to do some work if we get to that point. But right now, we just have that money in the budget as a placeholder in case a project does come out of this. But it's certainly going to go through a long process before we turn any dirt.
Right, and there will be a lot of opportunities for public discussion, whether it be at work sessions, council meetings, or plan commission meetings, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually glad Mike brought this up tonight. I have been approached by some folks as well from the Derby Downs area. The one thing that probably concerned me was, I wasn't privy to any of this, and I was sort of embarrassed because I didn't know how to answer their questions. I said I hadn't heard all these things, So certainly I hope moving forward that we're all kept abreast of what's going on and step by step through this process.
Right. I assume that there was some level of discussion when the budget was set with that item, but
Well,
Was it to a defined area or things like that?
Well, it was very briefly, and it was mentioned briefly in a work session several months ago, but I gotta admit too, I had forgotten about that, so I was caught off guard too when it showed up in the public opinion last week and started getting calls on it then.
Well, I think that, you know, one of the big things is if we're gonna have that on the work session next 2 weeks, lean on the media a little bit to help us out to get that word out to the people out in that area to, you know, if they want to get involved and give us their comments, please encourage them to get there to that next meeting, so.
Any other items that would fall under new business that you would like to speak about? I will tell you in regards to executive session, with the mayor not being here, I told him unless he can make some commitment to this council being nicer in 2016, that we were going to go into executive session and impeach him. But he made a commitment that he's going to be nicer, so I have no reason to go into executive session. So that said, do I have a motion to end?
Second.
Motion by John, second by Glenn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? This meeting is convened. Thank you.